Welcome to Live Well with Air. This is my 8th session on Live Well with Air, so I should be getting the hang of it by now. This week I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Mike Cannell, and his topic is immunity. Now, I think immunity is really, really important, especially in COVID land these days. I talked about it back in week 2, but I'm not an expert on nutrition and diet, so I think it's great to have him back today. And I'm longing to hear the government talk about, or even just mention immunity, mention the fact that we've got our natural immune system, which is currently saving so many lives, and it doesn't even get a mention in. Dr. Cannell, what have you learned as a GP? Actually, first of all, would you like to just introduce yourself as who you are?
Yes, well, I'm living in the village, having moved here a year ago from St Albans, but I'm still mainly working as a doctor in St Albans. For a long time, I was a GP partner in a practice in St Albans, but now I work roughly 1 day a week at a different practice in St Albans, helping them out. And then I do some private medical work, mostly in relation to nutrition and other complementary medicines or therapies. And so I'm enjoying my life too. But I wish I had learnt 20 years ago what I've learnt in the last 5 to 10 years. And it's been a journey, like all journeys of discovery. First of all with homeopathy, which I still use, and acupuncture, which I still use. But in the last 5 to 10 years, particular emphasis on lifestyle and nutrition, and how improving our diet and nutrition can make a huge advantage for our immunity. And then, of course, exercising as much as we're able to do. The importance of sleep. It's a big problem for many of us, and it's easy to forget. And that might be the subject of our future talk. The importance of dealing with stress. So many of our chronic conditions, it's the amount of stress we're all under, and of course we're under a lot with COVID-19. And you can't avoid stress, it's part of living, but it's how you deal with it and what strategies you have to cope, and whether you put enough rest periods in. Are you burning yourself out? Are you practicing any reflective, meditative practices, whether it be yoga or Pilates or prayer? These are so important. And finishing up on this subject is water, keeping yourself hydrated, learning to breathe properly. Oxygen and air are so important, and that might seem simple, but simple things like breathing through your nose, more practicing that. And going back to diet is the importance of keeping our gut healthy. And what I mean by that is the healthy bacteria. We'll come on to that a bit later on.
That's great. Thank you so much. How do you find all this stuff relates to you as being a GP?
Well,
do you get time to do this?
Well, as a locum doctor, I probably have more time because I don't have to worry too much about the government targets as much as perhaps a GP partner does. So I'm trying to do my best to listen to the patient, obviously, to hear what their needs are and what their questions are. And most people want to talk about preventative strategies. They want to talk about how to eat better, partly because maybe other doctors don't have time to do this or haven't had the training.
Excellent. You hear so much in the media about, we don't need to take supplements and they're not doing us any good, and all we need is a balanced diet. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting. They've just started to mention the importance of vitamin D. They've sort of been a bit slow in mentioning this. They should have mentioned this in March. And this really was the first vitamin I studied 15 years ago, which got me into nutrition, because I read a particular paper in the British Medical Journal talking about how vitamin D affects probably 200 different pathways or systems of the body, probably more than that. And it's so important. Some people call it a hormone. because it's so important. And of course, we only get it from the sun. Well, maybe 5% through our diet. Now, of course, you think it's a sunny day, so perhaps we don't need to take vitamin D. Well, for a start, in this COVID-19 season, I would say everybody should take it, winter and summer. The official policy is just the winter, but this time I would say take it in the summer too. But perhaps I'll come back to vitamin D because it was a general question. And I think you have to remember that perhaps the average 20 to 30-year-old, if they're eating a really healthy diet, organic food, lots of vegetables, they perhaps don't need to take a supplement apart from vitamin D. But most of us are on lots of medications. As we get older, we often need more. As we get older, we don't absorb them so well from our food because of our digestive systems not so efficient. Some of the drugs we take can interfere with vitamin and mineral levels. And stress means we burn them up more. You need a lot more vitamin C if you're under stress. If you smoke, you need a lot more vitamin C. There's so many differences because we're all individuals. So when the government says the population may not need vitamins and minerals, I think they're, except for vitamin D, they're now admitting, coming to the individual, you often do need them.
Is vitamin D like an individual medicine, or does that come into the personalised medicine?
Well, it is personalised, but because it's so important, I think that is the one vitamin that is needed by everybody.
Right.
And the only thing you have to be careful about if you're particularly over 80, a particular certain age, if you've got liver or kidney damage or it's not working so well, then you've got to have slightly lower doses. But in the main, most people need vitamin D. And when I used as a GP, I often used to do blood levels on people for vitamin D. And I was surprised that sometimes as many as 1 in 5 of the people I was testing, so I wasn't expecting a deficiency because they seemed to be healthy. And yet I came across extreme deficiency, so much so that they were ill from it.
Is it something you can get checked by your GP?
Well, some GPs are open to doing vitamin D blood tests and others are worried about the cost. But it's actually only probably costs the NHS about £30. And I think to test it now and again, not necessarily, not suggesting every year, but now and again it can be a useful addition.
Is there a difference when we've got darker skin with the absorption of vitamin D?
That's a very good question. And yes, undoubtedly, people with darker skin, people who are inside a lot, particularly now with all these Zoom meetings, people who even if they're a bit on the obese side, vitamin D then gets sort of stuck in the fat tissues, so your actual blood level can be lower. People on certain drugs, epilepsy drugs and some other drugs need more vitamin D. So yes, it's very important. People are on these fussy diets now. There's some people who, for whatever reason, sometimes good reasons, they have to avoid cow's milk. Cow's milk is a source of very good minerals and vitamins. It has vitamin D in, it has iodine, many things in it. But if you're taking a substitute milk, maybe almond milk or coconut milk, you have to be careful because some of these important mineral and vitamins are deficient in milk.
Ah. And there's a lot of people doing that, isn't there?
Yes, yes.
So what's the right amount of vitamin D to take?
In the normal season where we haven't got COVID-19, and I'm slightly going against what the government says, I personally tell my patients to take 2,000 units every day, certainly in the winter months, which is October to March, and the summer months I usually tell people to take a minimum of 1,000 units,
Right.
international units. Where it gets a bit complicated, because vitamin D, 1,000 international units is the same thing as 25 micrograms, and some bottles have different numbers on, so you have to check the label or you ask an assistant. But
Right.
it's easy just to remember as units, 1,000 international units in the summer. And that won't do you any harm at all.
Right, okay. So what supplements would you recommend with, what are your top ones apart from vitamin D?
Well, in this COVID-19 series, period, vitamin D, and there's a lot of evidence that vitamin C, even though you may be having an orange a day or an apple a day, which is very healthy, more vitamin C than that is actually very good for the immune system, and it's antiviral and antibacteria. And there's been some very interesting research studies, which I wish the media had given more attention to, that there was one in intensive care units in America. They were giving people intravenous C 100 times more than the recommended daily requirement, or even higher than 100. And they were giving this with people who had severe bacterial infections. I mean sepsis, we call it,
Yeah.
where you may die from sepsis. And they were having remarkable success from high doses of intravenous vitamin C. And they were also doing this in China, in Wuhan. And there are trials going on which have not had much media attention. There's a trial in, I believe, in Sicily. There's several trials in China. And they haven't had the media attention they should have done. And then a few more things to take, which are very healthy. Zinc, a zinc supplement. I often recommend zinc citrate. You won't do any harm in having 15 milligrams a day. Most of us are zinc deficient if you do tests, and it's very good at fighting viruses, very good evidence. And the other supplement, magnesium citrate, usually about 100 milligrams a day. Again, very good evidence. A lot of people are deficient in magnesium, partly because unless you're having or can afford organic vegetables, you see the soil is deficient in many rural areas. It's not enough minerals because of the chemicals they're putting on the soil. And so then it's mineral deficient. And so the vegetables you're growing are going to be mineral deficient. And lastly is the more fish you have, the better. So fish oil, if you're not perhaps having 3 fish courses a week, which is ideal, both white fish and oily fish, you may not want to do that or be able to do it. So a fish oil capsule, I normally recommend a pure fish oil, is very good. It protects the cells, it protects the membrane so the viruses can't get through, and it has many other benefits. It fights inflammation, which is usually one of the problems of catching viruses. And the last thing is something to support and make healthy the gut, your digestive system. So you can either take a probiotic, and that's something like kefir or kombucha, and you hear all about these things, but you can buy kefir quite easily now in the supermarkets, or you can get a fairly good probiotic capsule from various shops. If you really don't want to take that, the simple thing is having more seeds in your diet. We call that a prebiotic, because they feed the good bacteria. So prebiotic like sunflower, linseed, you can sprinkle on your granola or porridge, or even add it to a mince, casserole or cooking. All seeds are good, but you can also, I'm not very good at cooking artichoke and so on, but you can get, artichoke is very good for the digestive system. You can get artichoke capsules, or the other thing is inulin. Inulin, I-N-U-L-I-N, comes from artichoke, and you can get that as a supplement. So those are called prebiotics. So there's lots of things you can do to improve your immune system. I emphasize there's good evidence for what I've mentioned.
Can you talk about the connection between the gut and the immune system?
Yes, it's fundamental. Again, it's something I've only realized in the last 10 years. 70% of our immune system is reckoned to be within our digestive system. So that if we can enhance the natural bacteria in our gut, will improve our immunity. So 70%, that's pretty high. And there's also a very close connection between the gut and the brain. That's why people talk about the gut-brain axis, and that's another talk. But by keeping your digestive system healthy, it does have a beneficial effect on our brain. And we all need to have a better brain health.
Yes. And it can get us very confused, can't it, if our gut's off?
Yes, yes. And you're not absorbing the minerals and vitamins that we talked about.
Yeah, yeah.
Well.
So what would you like to say to the listeners of this call as the most important thing about your immune system?
The most important thing is that you can make a difference to your own health. And I think it's to give people permission and a sense of power that they can self-help safely and if necessary, they can ask their doctor. They should always do that if they're worried, because I don't know the medication you might be on. But I've been a GP for nearly 40 years, and I'm telling you these things from my experience. And start off with vitamin D. If you're not taking a supplement, start with that.
How do you think we'll ever get some of this stuff out in the general media, Mike? We got any good ideas about that? Because it really does need to be out there, doesn't it?
Yes, there's quite a few doctors like myself who are trying to push this across, and I think the government, rightly or wrongly, try to suppress anything like this because, I mean, I don't want to say anything out of order, but I believe that the government perhaps wanted to so get across a clear message about distancing and having to lock down and taking all these measures, especially at the beginning when we didn't know what we were dealing with.
Yeah.
But we didn't want to confuse the message by talking about self-help and what the public could do. So that's my reason why perhaps the message hasn't come across, because the government didn't want to confuse the picture.
But it's certainly not too late, as lockdown does get lifted, to take these supplements that might well help you, because it does appear we're going to be with this for a long time.
Yes, and there is this fear of a second wave. I don't know whether this has been amplified too much or not, but there's likely to be a somewhat of a second wave. We hope all a small one. But we know that all viruses like flu and other infections are always worse in the winter. So by the time we get to October, you want to try to maximize your health, your immune system, so it's in a good position. And doing what I've suggested will make a difference, coupled by exercising, trying to sleep better. Sometimes missing out caffeine can make a big difference, or other stimulants. Sometimes missing out alcohol can also improve your sleep. Thinking about these issues can make a big difference to prepare you for the winter.
And we have got time before the winter.
Yes, yes. I mean, it's at least 3 months plus away.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have got time.
So we want the people in Redbourne to keep as healthy as possible, please.
Yes, that's right. And your doctor will be very pleased if they can be kept away from their surgery.
And it's not just for COVID, is it? I mean, it's for life in general. Even without this has just got us to focus more.
Yes, as a general, I didn't start with diet, but if you have a Mediterranean diet, as much as possible, we call it rainbow colours. So all the different coloured vegetables, the aubergine, the yellow pepper, tomatoes, red pepper, Lots of greens. Broccoli is terrific at helping the immune system. You can also, of course, cauliflower and kale, and if you like, Brussels sprouts. I mean, these all are fundamental. I've taken that as read. Olive oil is healthy as well, lemons and so on. And you need some protein. So if you don't miss out meat, otherwise you might be iron deficient. But if you have to be a vegetarian for medical or other reasons, you need to make sure you get enough iron as well in your diet. And of course fish, we mentioned fish is so fundamental, and lots of beans and pulses, lots of nuts and seeds. They all help your brain and body.
Very good. So are you practicing independently now as well as being a GP?
Yes. I am. I do help people with the subjects I've talked about
Right.
today.
And do you have a website or anything like that?
Yes, I do have a website. If you search for my name, Michael Cannell, it will appear quite near the top.
That's great.
Yes.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful.
Okay, good.
Would you like to come back and do another talk at some time?
Yes. Well, I could do one other one perhaps in the future on different topics. I'm also interested in herbs. Maybe that's another topic. Certainly.
Oh, I came across a wonderful herb last year for sleep. And that was, I couldn't believe how good it was, and no after effects of taking sleeping pills.
Oh,
So
right.
yes, I'm sure we'd like to have you back to talk about herbs.
Yes, well, we could share knowledge.
Thank you so much,
All
Mike.
right. All the best.
Thank you.
Keep well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.